I was born in September 20th, 1935, in Genoa, Italy, and lived there for the first 16 years of my life. For about 2.5 or 3 years, I lived in an orphanage in Piedmont, about 90 miles from Genoa. It was an orphanage of Don Orione, it was called. I was not an orphan, but this was during the war from 1942 to 1945, I think it was, because my house in Genoa was flooded with the people who were escaping from Sicily after the Allied landed in Sicily. A lot of our relatives from Sicily ran away, escaped from Sicily and came up north to Genoa, and we were hosting them. We had a huge apartment in Genoa, and we had to accommodate as many as possible. There were 22 people in that apartment. So to make room for new arrivals, our parents sent myself, my 2 sisters, and a couple of kids from Sicily to this orphanage in Piedmont. And I stayed there until the war was over. We had plenty of food, which was unusual, because the orphanage was run by priests, and they used to send us just about every day out with a push cart to literally beg from farmers around there. But the bottom line is we were kids, and we had food on our table, which was unusual in those days. During the war, there was a lack of food all over the place, and my parents, in fact, used to come from Genoa to visit us in this orphanage, but also so that they could buy some food on the black market, because the farmers always had some kind of food hidden someplace. And my parents came to visit us, but also to get food for themselves to take back to Genoa. At the orphanage, they used to send us, every time anybody died in town, they used to send the orphans to pray around the corpse. And a couple of times while I was at the orphanage, that was the only times when I really had a terrible war experience. The town was called Castelnuovo Scrivia. Scrivia is some kind of a stream that passes close by there, and there was a bridge across the stream. And once the priest had sent us with a cart to beg, whatever, and we were near the bridge. And this is during the war, keep in mind, and just about every day we used to see planes above. They were going to bomb either Alessandria or Turin, and we never paid any attention to them. But this one day, I remember it was a very cold day with plenty of snow on the ground, and we were just past the bridge, and the planes came, and all of a sudden the planes came down and started bombing the bridge. And we were practically 100 yards away from the bridge. And let me tell you, we dove into the snow, me and some other kids there, and bombs exploding all over around us. And the funny thing is that they hit everything except the bridge. But that was one time that I was really terrified of what happened. And the other time was we were going at a funeral. Somebody had died, and like I said, they always sent the kids to pray around the corpse. And while we were at the funeral, again, the planes passed, and again they came to bomb. And let me tell you that one time that corpse remained there by itself. Everybody started running away to some kind of refuge. It was the two times in my life where I really was in danger of something terrible happening to me. Most important thing for us kids was, well, get something to eat, having a place to stay. It was a pretty comfortable place for us to stay. I didn't have any qualms. I have good memories, except for those two bombing incidents, but I have good memories of the place. This may come as a shock to you, but when I left the orphanage, I was so used to it that I'd really, even though I was only 10 years old, I was considering becoming a priest myself.
That is surprising.
Yeah, it is surprising. I guess because the place was run by priests, and they treated us well, and they provided for us, so which was much more than we could expect in Genoa. I remember quite a bit of the war, even in Genoa. In Genoa, we lived in a condominium on the fourth floor, and since Genoa was the most important port in the Mediterranean Sea, it was being bombed just about every day. And we would escape the bombing. There was some kind of a shelter, some kind of a tunnel about 200 yards away from where we lived, a tunnel built in the mountain, and we spent quite a few nights inside the tunnel because, well, to escape the bombing. And to me, once again, I was only a little kid. The bombing, I did not understand or realize the terror that my parents and everybody felt. To me, going inside the tunnel and hearing the bomb outside, well, hey, wow, they're bombing, and I go outside and watch, It was that kind of stuff, And I know that at least once the bombs hit the building about 3 buildings away from ours and destroyed it completely. The kind of stuff that you see in Ukraine now, that's what it was like in Genoa.
It almost sounds like it was exciting in a way. I mean, for you.
It was exciting. Yes, you can use that word. It was just not being aware of. I didn't have any responsibilities. Like my dad had to work, and my mother had to raise 5 kids, and there was the food was very scarce. Everything you needed some kind of a what's it called, a tessera.
A ration card.
A ration card, exactly. To get meat was practically non-existent. You could get just a little bit of bread or basic stuff. Most of the stuff that my family got was when it came to visit us. And believe it or not, at least 2 or 3 times, like I said, this town was about 90 miles from Genoa. A few times, my parents and whoever came to bring back some food, they walked all the way back to Genoa. It took them about 4 or 5 days because the railroads were destroyed or whatever. There were a few buses. It was tough for them. To me, once again, being in the orphanage was a blessing because I didn't have to worry about food or anything like that. The first time I saw the Americans was when the war was over, and I saw the first time I saw black people. I had no idea what the heck they were, how come they were like that. And I remember we used to go ask them for chewing gum or chocolate or something like that. I was only about 10 years old at the time, 10 or 11, because they didn't stay right after the war. I guess they stayed there for a year or so, and then they went back to the United States. Our main fun was playing soccer, except that it was difficult playing soccer without a ball. So we fashioned our own ball with some kind of rags tied up with strings, and that was the main source of fun. Where did we play? In the streets. There wasn't traffic was practically non-existent. There was maybe a car passed once every 10 minutes or so, and the streets were just about as wide as twice as wide as this room. But it was fun. What can I tell you? As far as actual playing with the ball, it was a miracle if we managed to scrape some money together and buy a real small ball. Otherwise, like I said, it was made with the rags and that kind of stuff.
How did life change in Italy after the war was over?
And it changed. For me, well, it was just the tranquility, if you will, of no longer the bombing, that kind of stuff. However, it was tough not just for my family, for every family. There was very little work, it was not famine, no, but it was tough. I know that my father worked in the port of Genoa and had a pretty good steady job, and my brother started working at the Ansaldo, it was called. It was a factory that I think shipbuilding industry, and he also went to school at night to. He became what they call Capitano di Lungo Corso, which was a graduate of the Nautical Institute in Italy, and he got a job on a ship. He was the second or third officer on a ship coming to the United States, and this was in 1946 or 47. And while he came out, he landed once in, I think it was in some place in Virginia, I forget, and he just decided to jump ship and remained in the United States. And he used to, every time he wrote to us, he always used to send a $10 bill or something. And once, in addition to the $10 bill, he included a $5 bill with instructions to my mother to buy me a real soccer ball. And my mother did that. And let me tell you, I became the king of Genoa. When I had a real soccer ball and I had to go, I could actually tell my kids, and my friends, that we could play ball with a real, it was, you cannot appreciate what I felt. That soccer ball didn't last too long, though.
Flocco, that's my name. My name is Maria Flocco, and I'm married to Vadala, but my name is Flocco, my last name, and I was born in Torino di Sangro in November 18th, 1940. The most beautiful little charming town in Abruzzo. It's right along the Adriatic Sea, and I lived about a mile from the beach, but never learned to swim because at that time girls could not wear a swimsuit, at least in Torino di Sangro, because it was a small town and women stayed home, cooked and cleaned, and that was all. And I had very little education because at that time, the girls went up to fifth grade, the girls went up to third grade. And my school was right next to the beach, next to the ocean. And we never had I never remember having snow, except one day I was in school and it was snowing. And the beauty between the snow and the ocean was unreal. I mean, it was so beautiful. I was right next to the window at school and I was looking at the snow. And the teacher asked me, Maria, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm looking at the snow. He said, oh, you want to look at the snow? Okay. They went and got a bunch of little pebbles. They put it in the front step to the school. We wore dresses. We had no. And they made me kneel down there to the rest of the class. I had to read the whole time, an hour, on top of the little stones. And my knee was bleeding because, they were sharp little stones. And when I went home, my mom didn't have any education. She didn't go to school at all. So if we had any complaint about the school, you didn't tell your parents. But because I went home with blood on my knees, she said, what did you do? And I said, well, what did you do to the teacher? Because, to them, the teachers did nothing wrong. It didn't matter. So that made me even push, even though I was a little kid. I want to get out of here. I don't want to live here. But like I said, we had no running water. And, we worked in the farm. We grew tobacco. And at the time, now they have all different things. By the time you got up very early in the morning, because when the sun was up, you couldn't be near the plants because it gets sticky and bad. So you got up 4 o'clock in the morning, even when you was 8, 9 years old, and you went to pick the leaf and stack them and bring it home. And then after you have a little breakfast, our breakfast that time, it was go under the fig tree, a piece of bread, and eat figs. That was the breakfast that time of the year anyway. And then we would have a special needle that we put thread in it, heavy one, and you put every little leaves you insert, and then you hang them to dry. And that even if you were 10 years old, you did that. Before we went to school, we went to pick when the time for the tobacco, time for the figs. You went to work before you went. Then you went home. You washed yourself as best you did. We had no tub or anything. Best you can. You went to school. A lot of time we got punished because our nails weren't very clean, and the teacher would punish us, and they would always hit us with a stick in our hand. You put your hand out like this, and they hit. But if you went like this, you had to put like this, and you get hit. And that was my childhood. But my parents were very loving. Those days, they don't do like we do to our kids. Oh, I love you and all this. They didn't do it. But they didn't, hit us or, they were loving parents. That's all. My childhood wasn't bad per se, but it wasn't, what they have here. No way. My dad was very severe. But I remember as a child, one time I had a fight with my cousin, and somebody went and told my father that I had a fight, a girl, a word fight. And he came home and he said, Maria, I need to talk to you. I knew what it was about, and I wet myself because I knew that he wouldn't hit me, but we were scared of them. They just put that fear in us, My mom was the sweetest you could ever meet. She spoke nicely, very religious, very, very religious. She was the nicest person. And my brothers and sisters, they were all nice. My oldest brother, Antonio, he thought he was the king, of course, and he was strict with us. He was, you couldn't say anything, you couldn't go any place unless he gave you permission. I was the fifth child. I always felt I was not wanted because they had 2 boys and 2 girls. Here I come, another girl. And the way my mom used to say that my dad didn't come and see me until about 5 days after. Didn't even want to see me, but it wasn't my fault that I was there, So my brother Antonio was firm. He was a good person, but he was just firm. And then my sister Filomena, that she passed away not too long ago in May, and she was nice, you know. I mean, we were all close. We slept in one bed, two at one hand and two at the other hand. So we were close. We were very close, and we didn't fight, you know. And then there was my brother Umberto, the one I came with in this country. He was very stubborn, but you know, we all got along. We had no choice. I mean, we got along. And then was my brother, my late brother. Well, they're all late brother. They all died. Alfred, he died stomach cancer when he was 38 years old, and he was a good guy, very good guy. And then was my sister Lisa, which I'm very close to, and she lives in Philly. And then was my brother Gabe, the youngest one, which I was the closest to him. You know, I kind of almost want to say I raised him because I was born 1940, he was born 1947. You have to think that at that time in Italy, 7-year-old, you were not the 7-year-old you have here. You know, we worked, we cooked, we cleaned, we did. And so I'm not saying I raised Gabe, but I was very close to him, you know. Our house, we had like a kitchen, and then we had the bedrooms. We had no bathrooms. And we had 3 bedrooms. My parents occupied one, my 4 brothers occupied one, and the 4 sisters the other one. And I don't know, I never, like, we stood up for dinner. I didn't think it was a big deal that we were eating standing up, you know. And I remember that when my mother made polenta, and we had polenta a lot in the wintertime, and she would put a spread all over the table, on the table, you know. And we all stood there and ate this polenta and, you know, put sauce on it. And I thought nothing of it. I thought, you know, that's the way I grew up. That was the thing to do. I didn't feel it was hard. I mean, I look at my life, I look back now and I think, oh my God, really? But, you know, when I was 8 years old, my uncle got married, and the kids weren't allowed. There was the reception right next door. The kids weren't allowed, and I always loved the music, and they were playing the accordion there. There was music, and I wanted to go, and it was nighttime. So I went, and I opened the door, and somebody, you know, those doors in Italy, it's really heavy, and somebody saw me, didn't push me back, just slammed the door, and I slammed my finger, and it's still crooked because I remember I was not going to tell my mom because she'd be mad because you weren't supposed, what were you doing there? And she just said, you know, I didn't even tell her. But then I needed a drink, like, you know, and then I went to get some water, and I felt something hot down my elbow, my arm, and I saw it was all blood. So then I had to tell my mom. And she couldn't do anything because it was the wedding. It was nighttime, and then, you know, they wait the next morning to go to take me to the doctor. And when we went there, the doctor was a friend of the family. He was the godfather to my brother Umberto, and it really yelled at my mom. And my father said that you should be in jail. No, there's nothing we could do. All the nerves were cut. And it said there's nothing. He didn't even know what to do, I guess. He didn't stitch or nothing, and I still have like scar here, and it's crooked because he never straightened the bone or nothing. So I still have this finger like this. I was 8 years old. Yeah. Didn't have much fun. We didn't have much fun. We worked all the time, and nighttime, like in the wintertime, my mom would sit with us and tell us little stories, or we sit around the fire. We went to bed very early, you know. It was cold. We didn't have heater in the house, just the fireplace, you know. We had the fireplace. But that's why, you know, I don't have bad, like, childhood memories that people beat you or, you know, punish you. Or I remember just one time my mom, my aunt had a baby in 1949, I think, 1949. So at first, I loved to go there and to play with the little boy. You know, was a little boy. I loved to go. But then I got tired of it. And so when my aunt would call to go and take care of the baby, I would go, but then I didn't want to go anymore. And one day I said to her, I said, well, you had it, you take care. And before I finished the word, my mom slapped me the first time, the only time, slapped me. I had a black eye for a week. So for a couple days, I went to school because, I couldn't tell my mom that the kids would make fun of me, but I hid in the woods and I sat there all day long. I wait when the rest of the kids was coming home, and then I joined them, but I didn't go to school. Teachers those days were not now that they call the parents. You didn't go to school, tough luck for you, So it's the only time I remember that my mom slapped me. Because we were not allowed to answer back to people, you had to be respectful to everybody, even if it was a cousin of yours, was a little older than you, you didn't fight, you didn't talk back. They were very strict that way. One of the memory I always have that my sister Elena, which she was born the same year as 1935, so I was 5 years younger than her. She was making the tagliatelle. So she made the dough and then she could not cut it. I had to hold the dough and she would cut it. And she cut my fingers because I didn't move them quick enough. I remember that about homemade pasta. But we made homemade pasta. When I was about 11 years old, I was already making homemade pasta. I didn't make the tagliatelle, the fettuccine, because they were hard to cut it, but I made what we call pasta alla chitarra, which we had. That looked like a guitar, but I still have in the garage, by the way. It was 2 pieces of wood like this, and then they had strings, and then you made the dough and you put it there, and you push it down, and you got the spaghetti. And we made that every day, So when I was 11 years old, I was already doing that. We didn't have what we call now, I call Sunday sauce. You have had my Sunday sauce, We just, when we made, was a holidays, we just made sauce with chicken or rabbit. That's all we did. We didn't make. Sometimes we made what we call fake meatballs, which was good, by the way. It was cheese. Well, we made our own cheese. We had cheese, breadcrumbs, parsley, garlic, and eggs, and we made meatballs. But meat, seldom bought meat at the butcher shop. Seldom. Never. Actually, I don't remember eating any meat from the butcher shop. We had the lambs, and Easter time you would kill a lamb, and then we had cows. And when my father sold some veal, it's not called veal though, I couldn't think of the word now, but when he sold them, he always reserved the butcher to give us some to make soup, and my mother would make soup once in a while. That was the only meat from the butcher shop. Otherwise, we raised the pig every year, and then in January, my father would butcher the pig, and we would have sausages and pancetta and guanciale and prosciutto, and that's how we lived. We ate that kind of stuff.
I mean, it sounds like a hard childhood. I mean, what were some of the challenges that your
Well, we
family
didn't
was
feel there was challenge. The challenges was not having, go walk. That's why you'd never see me bare feet, not even in the house. We had to walk outside in bare feet, and I didn't like it. In the wintertime, we had shoes, but it was always like my sister grew out of the shoes, and I got that pair of shoes. And I grew out, and my sister got them. And they were either too big or too small, and that's why I have terrible feet now, I think. Actually, we were the first person around the neighborhood that bought the radio. They didn't, so I didn't feel, I know it's stupid, but we bought a radio, God. And people used to come and listen to the news there in our house, So I never felt poor. I just felt that I want to better myself. I just didn't want just that life that everybody else had. And that's why I decided to come here. Christmas Eve. Yeah, Christmas Eve, we always did 7 fishes, but we didn't have 7 fishes. So as long as you made 7 platters, you had some fish. But my mother was so religious, no matter what age you were, as long as you could speak, you could talk, so you had to fast. That meant eat nothing all day long. You could drink water, nothing at all. And you could not eat before it got dark outside. Okay? And then then you're allowed to eat. Of course, we were so hungry. They always made pasta with anchovies, which I still hate this day. I can't stand it. So I didn't like it. But I had to eat because I was starving. Then they made 7 dishes. They made like the pasta with the anchovies, and they made like bacala all the time. And then my father used to love eels, which I hate them. And they used to make that. And then they used to make cabbage and beans. It had to be 7, and which till this day, you know that I make the 7 fishes because I could afford to buy. But they couldn't, but they made the 7 dishes. And then Christmas Day, went to church. Some of us, not all of us, because a lot of us didn't have clothing. You just had everyday clothes. You didn't go to church like that. And then she will always make chicken soup. I make the wedding soup. It's why I still make it, even when we don't feel like having it. I still make it. And she always cooked the rigatone. That was the time we bought the pasta. And some kind of meat, like either chicken or rabbit, something. And that was the Christmas, we didn't have no Santa Claus. And then on January 6th, that's the Epiphany. And that's when we have La Befana, which is a scary old woman.
What is that?
It's this old lady that's supposed to be like Santa Claus, and she's supposed to bring you gift if you're good and coal if you're bad. And so we they were not fancy stockings. We put our new socks, we had clean socks, we put it there, and they would put in always a piece of coal because somehow during the year you had to be bad. And then my mom would have made us socks. We put a pair of socks in there, and they always would buy it because we didn't have orange. They came from Sicily. We didn't have. So she would buy orange. She put an orange in there and a couple of chestnuts. And we were so excited. We get up in the morning. We have gifts. That's the only. No birthday cakes, no birthday celebration. I never remember. That's why I resist having them now. I don't want them. And because I never had one. And, not just me. Nobody did, So anyway, that was my childhood.
Do you remember anything about the war at all?
No, I remember they always told me that I was a chiacchierone. I talked a lot, and when we had to go for the bombing, and we went to the shelters. It was underground, and I always wanted to ask. But the only thing I remember, we had geese and with white geese. I don't know why, but we did. We had chickens and stuff. And I think when the American was, because we lived near a river, and the Americans were coming to fight against the Germans, I guess, and the parachute was coming down. And I thought, because I was only four years old, I thought our geese was flying away. So I went in and I said, oh, the geese are flying away, And then it was the American that was coming. And I remember, the only thing I remember, that they would give us crackers, and they were really good to the kids. They were, we were scared of the Germans because they had beat my father up, and all my uncles they went to the war, but my father, because he had too many kids, and he stayed home. He went, but they sent him home, and he went and he hid some wine and oil. He dug a hole in the ground, but somebody spied on him and told the Germans, and they beat my father up so badly. Then thank God they didn't kill him. So we were scared because they occupied our house during the war. But I don't remember all that because they had a house where everybody slept, and then they had a house where my grandparents lived, and we all ate together. About 40 people, all at the same house. They cooked there. So when the Germans occupied our home, so we went to live in the other house. So I don't remember all that. Now, it's just what they tell me, but I don't remember all that.
So you don't remember, like, meeting any of the Germans?
No, I don't. I just don't. I remember the American giving us crackers. I remember the crackers. The saltines, that's where they were. And I still see them now. And I think I should buy them because I liked them, you know.
Mimo, that's my brother. Name is Domenico, but everybody calls him Mimo. Everything that I am, everything that I have accomplished, everything, absolutely everything, I owe to my brother. He did everything for me. He made sure that he was responsible for my coming to the United States, and he took care of me from the age of 16 until for about 10 years, except for 3 years in the Army, that I was in the Army. But he did everything for me. So everything I did, everything I've done, for good, for bad, everything I owe to him. I'll be forever grateful to him and his wife also, Angie, because they welcomed me in their house when I was just a young adult, about 16, and they took care of me just like one of the family for about 10 years. I left Italy in November of 1951. I just turned 16. I turned 16, and I see. I'm not the typical right off the boat kind of immigrant that came here as to work or no. I came here as a student. In those days, the United States of America, was still America. I mean, really America. Just the idea of coming to the United States was a dream for everybody. We're talking about 1951. Nowadays, I don't think anybody from Europe longs to come to the United States, except for as a tourist or something like that. But back then, just the idea of going to America was something unbelievable. I had this great desire of coming, not only because my brother was already here, but because I had this vision that coming to the America, I would become wealthy. It was stupid, very juvenile, I'll be the first to admit it. But that's the way people felt back then. So I was incredibly happy to come to the United States. And when I came to the United States, it didn't take long for me to realize that, hey, yes, you can become wealthy, but you have to work. But at the same time, I loved everything about the United States. The new cars every year, the television. I'd never seen television before. It was one marvelous thing after another. It was.
Do you remember what the first thing you did was when you arrived in the country?
Well, my brother came to pick me up in New York. I came by boat. And I should say that I've hated the sea ever since then because I was seasick just about all the time. The trip took about 14 days, and I was seasick all the time. But anyhow, I remember when I arrived in New York, my brother first came to pick me up, and he took me to some kind of diner where they had all kind of food, just the typical. It was a huge place that you pick your own food and then you pay at the end. It was kind of silly to think about it now, but to me it was a marvelous thing how efficient everything was, even though some of the food was terrible, to be honest. But anyhow, then we went to Rising Sun. That's where my brother lived, in Rising Sun, Maryland. And my sister-in-law, Angie, had prepared a huge meal for me, I remember, with a huge strawberry shortcake. And now you have to understand the things in the right context. Sweets were unknown to me practically. And the seeing that huge strawberry shortcake was, God, and I couldn't believe it. I was very polite, and she gave me a little slice, and but I kept looking at it. Long story short, I practically ate the whole damn strawberry shortcake, and the next day, I had such a terrible indigestion, I threw up. It was not the most perfect arrival, let's put it this way. But other than that, I love the United States.
So it's November when you come over. School year is already underway, right?
Yes, exactly. I had, like I said, my brother had enrolled me at the West Nottingham Academy. But when I came here, it was already the Christmas holidays, practically. So I started going to school there in January of 1952. And the question is, my English was practically non-existent. I had studied English in Italy for about a year and a half, but still was, I could not understand anything. Still, I went to school, and they assigned a teacher to me just to acquaint myself with the language. I should say that, I should add that in Italy, in school, I was a jackass. This way, I was always, I never passed, I had to go to summer school all the time, and once I really flunked. On the other hand, here in the United States, I went to West Nottingham Academy. I couldn't even speak English. And when I graduated, I was the valedictorian of the school. The difference was, in Italy, schools are much, much tougher. They teach, or they used to teach, much more. And just to give you a very short example, I told you I had the foreign language in Italy. I studied English for a year and a half. In the second year of my studying English, we were required to read Macbeth. Like I said, we had. Can you imagine? Like if you went to Italy and you had to learn Italian, and then the second year you start reading Dante Alighieri or something like that. It's the same thing, you know. But that's how tough schools were in Italy. Here it was almost a joke. I had no problems at all. In fact, I took French at West Nottingham Academy, and I knew more French. Even though I could understand French better than the teacher almost, even though I had just because of the similarities between French and Italian, and also at West Nottingham, it was one of the very few schools that taught Latin. I had studied 7 years of Latin in Italy. So I became friends with everybody in school because everybody wanted me to do their homework, that kind of stuff, you know.
How did you end up learning the language?
It didn't take me all that long. My brother's help and the television. My brother used to quickly translate what television was saying. Also, I've always had a love of music, and I quickly memorized the words of the songs, and that helped me, I think, in learning the language. Plus, of course, you know, so you went to school. Kids have they learn languages much faster than adults, and that happened to me. And I think, despite the fact that I've been in the United States here for over 70 years now, I still have a slight accent, I think. Just in case you ever noticed it. But I think that I did pretty well as far as the vocabulary and that kind of stuff. The second year, for my birthday, Mimo bought me a bicycle. Now, if I had a bicycle in Italy, I probably would still be in Italy. I would have been so happy that the idea of having a bicycle in Italy back in those days was magical. Anyhow, Mimo bought me a bicycle, and so I used to go back and forth by bicycle. It was I cannot even explain. By then, I had become so used to the United States that a bicycle here was not such a big deal. The next step would have been a car. That's how I used to travel anyhow, back and forth between school and home.
You know, did everybody sort of embrace you immediately? Did you experience any kind of...
Yes, I did not experience any kind of prejudice, let's put it this way, mainly, I think, because the school, West Nottingham Academy, was a school that had quite a few foreigners. They had the guys from Thailand, China, Italy, of course. So anyhow, it assimilated all of us. So I did not have much problem at all. Plus, like I said, I made a lot of friends there because of my ability in doing their homework in Latin and that kind of stuff. The only, how shall I say, negative factor was because I was always, in school, I was always the best student. And the best is always a little bit, not disliked, but I made a lot of friends, but I was also sometimes not accepted because of my ability in school. And I'm not bragging because, like I said, I swear in Italy I was a jackass. Here, instead, without even trying, I was the number one. The Army always asked you, where would you like to be stationed? And of course I said, Italy, or someplace in Europe. Instead they sent me to Korea, And I spent 18 months in Korea, the most awful 18 months of my army career. I could never understand this. I was sent to Korea, this was 1954 until the end of 55. And in Korea, there was the war in Korea that ended about 3 years before, but still it was an incredibly poor country. I couldn't believe that the United States lost about 50,000 men to help that country there. It was the most awful conditions. And in the Army, like I said, I was a medic. And how did I spend my new expertise as a medic? Giving penicillin shots to people who had contracted gonorrhea. I swear to God, that's what I used to do. Because the Army, the soldiers were forbidden from going into the villages because it was all prostitutes and that kind of stuff. but that's where they went anyhow. And so they contracted a lot of what they crap, I guess it's called. And I was supposed to give the penicillin shots. That was my Army career. Then finally, when I finished with the Korea, I was stationed in Fort Meade, Maryland. And there I actually worked for quite a while as an obstetrician help. When wives of soldiers gave birth and that kind of stuff, That was quite an experience also. I bet you do know that about
I
me.
never, somehow that has not come up again. When you got discharged from the Army, what was next? What happened?
In the Army, at Fort Meade, I made quite a few friends. And one of these friends was, his name was John McKenna, and he lived in Wilmington. He was a graduate of the University of Delaware. And we kept corresponding. Back then, people used to actually write to each other. I lived in Rising Sun, and he lived here in Wilmington, which is not far away, but we corresponded quite a bit. And he told me that he found a job as at the Wilmington Savings Fund Society in Wilmington. And he asked me, why don't you apply here? Maybe they'll need somebody who speaks Italian. Now, you have to understand that banking in Italy was considered a very elite profession. Maybe it still is now, I don't know. But back then, banking was really a fantastic position, one you could only dream about. And I thought maybe the same thing was true here in the United States. But anyhow, I asked John McKenna to send me an application. He sent me an application. To my surprise, they actually answered me saying, come in for an interview on such and such a day. I went, and to my surprise, they actually hired me. And they had the fabulous pay of about $50 a week. I told them, look, I live in Rising Sun. I have to commute back and forth. So they made it $55 a week. And then, I went into banking, and I went to work as a teller at the Union Street office in Wilmington, because Union Street was in Little Italy, and quite a few of the customers were Italian. And I know for a fact that I brought in quite a few customers because they knew that there was somebody who spoke Italian at the bank. And I realized that banking, I thought that to become a banker, you have to have some arcane knowledge of mathematics and finances, that kind of stuff. No. To be a good banker, you have to know that 2 + 2 = 4, plus you have to have good sense of the public, And I had that, and I loved it. And I actually thought that I'll stay in banking until I find something better. Something better lasted 40 years. I lived there I worked there for 40 years exactly. I went back to Italy in 1961 for the first time, and it was a revelation. It was Italy at the time, in the early 1960s, was experiencing an incredible economic boom. And when I went back to Italy, I couldn't recognize it. For one thing, I couldn't understand how the streets had shrunk. You may think, well, what is this guy talking about? But it's a fact. We used to play soccer in the street. And when I went back, we played here in this little, it's impossible. Plus the number of cars and the number of scooters, because by then the Vespa and the Lambretta had come out with the scooters, and everybody had the scooters. Nobody played in the streets anymore. It was impossible. I saw an incredible change in Italy from what I remember, to the point that I even kind of regretted leaving Italy. I longed to go back there. And for quite a few years, I really would have loved to go back to Italy to live, because I literally fell in love again with Italy after my first visit. But I then finally realized that one thing is going to Italy as a tourist, and another thing is going to Italy to live there. It's two different things. Italy is a marvelous country as far as views, food, wine, that kind of stuff. But to live there, the bureaucracy is so awful. You just want to run away, literally.
My grandparents, her parents, came to this country, and before my mom was born, and they had 2 kids, and they went to live in Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh, I guess, because it was in a mine town. And my grandfather was very, very jealous. So my mom, my mom was born here. She was born in Ernest, the town was called, in Pennsylvania. And because I always remember her saying, I was born in Ernest Pa. We didn't even know, but that's what was Ernest, Pennsylvania. I remember that, yeah. Anyway, so when my mom, after my mom was born, my grandmom had another daughter. No, after my mom was born, my grandmom got pregnant again. My grandfather was so jealous, they want her to go to the doctor. You know, they had babies at home. And they used to do like, okay, when you have a baby, I take care of you, then with the neighbors. And when I have, so her neighbor had a baby. It was in the wintertime, and Pennsylvania was really icy and cold. So my grandmom was 5 months pregnant, and she fell down, and the baby died. And my grandfather didn't want her to go to the doctor, because those days there were no female doctors. And so they wanted her to go to the doctor, and so she died. My grandmom died. And so my grandfather had 4 kids by then. Yeah, had 4 kids. So he couldn't, 5 kids, he had 5. So he couldn't take care of him. His brother, that lived there, my grandfather's brother, had come to this country. He had 5 kids, and he wanted to go back to Italy. So my grandfather shipped all the kids except the oldest one. He was 18. He kept them here. But so they all went back to Italy. Okay. So my mom and her sister, the older sister got married. The brother had to go to war, the war, the 15, 18, whatever, he had to go to war. And my mom was about, I don't know, maybe 8 years old, and her sister was 10, and they just abandoned them. They just abandoned them to live on their own. So, but she was born American citizen because she was born here. And so, after every one of us was born American citizen, but when you get to 21, you lost your citizenship. My 2 sisters was married. They didn't want to come, but they didn't have, because they were over 21. But my brother Umberto and I was 18, and he was 20, so we were American citizen. That's why I never had an Italian passport. I came as an American, and my brother and I came as an American citizen. So I never had to go and get my citizenship because I was born with it, and that's why we came here.
So you and Umberto were just kind of at the right age, and I guess
At the right
your
age.
younger siblings were too young.
Too
to come
young
over?
to come.
Okay.
And my mom and dad couldn't come because my mom, meanwhile, had lost her citizenship because after I was born, she started to vote. And once she voted in Italy, she lost her citizenship. So Zio Alfredo Giantonio was over the age. And when Alfred, Lisa, and Gabe, they were not born citizens because my mom had lost her citizenship because she had voted in Italy. She voted, and then she lost it.
I mean, why did you guys come to America? Did you know that you wanted to come?
I know, I want to get
want
out.
You to come? Were you sent? I mean,
Then we had decided, I want to get out Italy. I had a cousin that lived in England. I was willing to go there and be a maid, and I don't care, I want to get out. But then, they discuss it like, okay, we had a farm, but not enough for 8 kids. Enough to eat, but not, they had to get married and all that kind of stuff they had to do. So my parents decided that we should come, but they really don't want me to come. But I was ready. I had the suitcase ready before I got the passport. But they decided me and my brother Umberto could come here and start, and then we could send for them, which that's what we did. We sent for my parents. We were here 2 years by the time my parents came, 1.5 years. So we sent for my parents. But the thing is, when I came here, it wasn't all peaches and cream.
When you set foot in America, do you remember like what the first thing was that kinda it clicked for you? Like, wow, this is a better place.
Oh, the bathroom inside the house. The restaurant we went to, because the bathroom the outside there, the house, you had to go out. The bathroom inside the house, the running water, we stopped. Of course, I would need that stuff, but. We stopped at Howard Johnson, I remember. The scrambled egg, I remember looking at them when they whisked these eggs so they could make a good frittata, scrambled eggs, they got scrambled eggs. I remember all that. I remember, it was a shock to me that, they had, I didn't even know what ketchup was. What the heck is that? But I mean, but I knew that you go to a place, I never had been in a restaurant, and I knew that you go to a place and people served you. You had the money, you could do it. So I loved everything about this country. And actually, it was the first time I saw a black person because I never seen a black person. And I remember not understanding why people were black because, like I said, the war, I don't remember. I'm sure there were black soldiers, but I didn't see them. But I remember how different they look from us. Not that I resent the way they look. I just thought, oh my God, there's more than us around here, When I came here, I went to work for the Three Little Bakers, the worst people you could work for. And they give you, when I first came, a cousin, not even the four-time removed cousin of my father, picked us up in New York, which, God bless her soul, that was very nice of her to do. But she was a widow, and she didn't want us to live there. After a month, she wanted us to go. So I went to work at the Three Little Bakers. And at the time, the minimum wage was $1 an hour, okay? And they were so mean, so bad, those people, that they told you, you work 40 hours, okay? Okay, $40, all right. But you work 6 days, and you work 10 hours a day, and they still pay for 40 hours. They still pay you work, So they didn't pay you they didn't pay you for those hours. They pay you for 40. You work 60, they pay you for 40. So I did not want my parents to know that it was tough. Like we didn't speak. After I stayed at my aunt there, well, she kind of, for about a month and a half, she wants us to go. So my brother and I got an apartment, okay, that we could go and stay. But it was far. My aunt lived in Marshallton. I worked in Lancaster Avenue, so I would go by bus, take bus number 6, and you go to work. So I took bus number 6, and I went to work. I took bus number 6 to go home, and it was fine. I didn't have the address written down any place. I did not know the address. I was here only about maybe a month when that happened. And so I didn't know that on a Saturday, the bus changed. So 3 o'clock, I see bus number 6, take and go. So after a week or so, I got so good. I said, I don't even have to look at the number. It's 4 o'clock, the bus is coming, I'm going. So but nobody told me on Saturday changed. So 4 o'clock, the bus came, I jumped on, and as soon as start, I knew it was the wrong bus. Okay? And what am I going to do now? I mean, I didn't speak one word of English. I didn't have my address. So the bus kept going around and around. And then when it was time, when the bus depot, the driver came there and told me to get out. And I wouldn't get out. I couldn't say anything. I just sat there. And he tried to push me out, and I wouldn't. So he called the cops. He called the police because I wouldn't get out. Because I thought, if I get out of here, where am I going? I don't know. I don't know the address. I don't know what to do. I had no money with me or nothing. I don't know how to get that. I don't know. So they called the cops. And one of the cops was Puerto Rican or Spanish or something, So he spoke to me in Spanish. It's not that I spoke Spanish, but Spanish and Italian, they're kind of close. And he understood me 6. He understood that. And he realized, oh, she takes number 6, bus number 6. So they took me home with a police car. They didn't know the address, But when I saw the driveway, she had a long driveway, I started to cry and scream that I was home. And that was the worst that happened to me in this country. That was the very worst, except losing Ashley, but that's the worst. And then we went to live, we got an apartment on Colonia Avenue, Colonia Heights it was called. And so I was working 3 Little Bakers. I could walk there, from there I could walk. Well, we start 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'm walking one morning, snow up to here, no boots, no coat, nothing. So the cops stopped me. I said, well, where are you going? 4 in the morning, all the snow, Again, that's why I'm for the police, And I told them, I was going to work. The little bit I knew, I was not even 2 months I was here. Well, I was in August and there was snow, and so it was a few months. And they took me to the bakery, and they told them, to pay me to buy the boots. I had no boots, it was snowing. But, it was tough, but I never complained. So I wanted to send my parents some money because I didn't want them to know how bad it was, okay? So I would send them $5. But I didn't have, I didn't know how to tell the bank when I went to cash my check to give me, they always give me $2.20, that was my check, $40. And so I went to my neighbor. We lived in the apartment. I wanted to change the money to send my mother, my parents $5, but I didn't know what to say. So that lady, I remember, she gave me potatoes, she gave me flour, no. She gave me oil, wine, no. So I just went home. And the next day, because the Turtle Bakers, they're Italian, and their father, I think, their grandfather came from Naples. And I said, you say change, in Italian and in English. And they told me, that was my first American word, change. So the whole day while I was working, I kept saying, change. Cambio change. That's my first American word, the first English word I learned. And that's how I learned my English, by, just repeating one word that I learned, I repeated all day long until it just, and then, like my brother got real sick, he got the mumps. And when you get the mumps at that age, it's really bad. And so we had no money, we had no insurance, we had nothing. And, DeFonso Bakery, I don't know if, well, their son, and then my brother was working for DeFonso. They took us to their doctor, and he was a Greek doctor, I forgot the name, didn't charge us, and give us penicillin. And I would have to run from work every day to give him medication because he was so sick, my brother. But I would do that. I would run there and give him medication and go back to work and hear them screaming. But I didn't speak English. I don't care what they were saying, So, but I did that, with my brother. It was rough, but, we went to Goodwill. When we had to move, my aunt, she didn't want to help, But I had made friends, and they helped us to find an apartment, and took us to the Goodwill, and we got the apartment was just one bedroom and the living room and the kitchen, and they took us to Goodwill. We bought a bed, which I used, and we bought a sofa, which my brother used. I mean, I had no wash machine. I washed clothes by hand in the tub. It was okay with me. I didn't care. No dryer. That's fine. I was always happy that I left Italy. No matter how rough it was, I knew that someday I would go where I want to go, and I did.
What was the Italian American community like? Did you know other Italian immigrants at the time, or?
I only met a couple of them, and I felt they were not very helpful because they would talk in English, even, and they knew we didn't speak English, and why would you talk to me in English, I didn't find them very helpful. But then after we lived there, maybe a year in that apartment, we moved on top of DeFonso Bakery in Union Street. That's when I encountered the Italian community, and everybody was really nice. Like, I found a family then. In fact, when my parents came, they came at that apartment in Union Street, and I met and I didn't know what Thanksgiving was, and DeFonso's mother, she was from New Jersey, and they went to have Thanksgiving in New Jersey, and they took us, and I remember them having a turkey. We didn't raise turkey, we had chicken. And, I thought what a wonderful holiday that was, And then I met the Faella family, that they were like family to me. They had two daughters and a son. And what was nice when we moved there, I met a lot of Italian people. On the weekend, I would have them in my house. We had a record player, we could play music, all the girls, and we used to get together. That was fun. Before my parents came, we had a lot of fun with the girls, the other girls, and it was okay. I was good. Then my parents came, and then they sent for the rest of the family. It took maybe about 6-8 months before they came, and then the whole family. And then my father, maybe we lived in that apartment a couple of years maybe, and then my father bought a house in Union Street, and then of course we all got married, and but yes, I love this country. I always feel that I am more American, except all my friends think that maybe I exaggerate because I'm more American than Italian. I cook Italian. I can't get rid of my accent no matter how hard I try, but I'm more American, I think.
What were Americans like? Did you
nice?
Was there any prejudice or anything?
So helpful. So I don't have any American friends, by the way. Don't have any American friends. Never made American friends. But they were always kind. They were always helpful to try. Because like Anthony DeFonso, he was, his father was from Naples, but he was born here, so he was American. It's like your mom, And they bent backwards to help us. They really did. America, I never felt any, even the Italian that worked there, they were mean. But the American, they were always so helpful, don't do this, do that like this. Nice, very nice. No, that's why I'm not prejudiced, not a racist, not because I came and everybody helped me. Not too much the Italians, but the friends I made, the real good friends, but no. An American, I think it's why I love this country, because most Americans, they're very helpful. They don't make fun of your accent or nothing, The first time I went back to Italy was in 1963. And we went by boat, and I came back by plane, I think. But yeah, it was the first time and when I went back to Italy, I just thought, oh my God, this house is so small, the streets are so small because America is so big. You know, it's the highway, the New Jersey Turnpike. I just, when I was in the car, I was sick as a dog, but I kept looking that road. Oh my God, there's all these cars in the same road. You know, they go the same way. And, you know, just, so when I went back there, I thought my town was small, the house was small, the streets were small. And, you know, I just couldn't get over that. I grew up there. I thought it was big. I thought everything was big there. But yeah, 1963, I went back.
You want to know how I met my mom? Okay. Pure luck.
I met Nonni. I went to buy the travels. It was called at the time a traveler's check. I don't think do they have them anymore? I don't know. But in Italy, they wouldn't change. If you had cash money, they were not going to change. So you had to have, I guess it's like the cashier's check, maybe. I don't know.
And she always deposited the $10, $15 every week in her savings account. Now you have to understand that I worked at the Wilmington Savings Fund Society. I knew what Wilmington meant. I knew what fund meant. I know what society meant. Nobody ever explained to me what savings meant. I always spent everything I had. So I was kind of impressed by this young lady that came and always deposited $10, $15 out of a meager paycheck. But I never had the opportunity to talk to her.
First time I met Nonna, I went to the bank. I did not have an account because we had just moved to Union Street and I wanted to open an account on Union Street there. But I didn't have one, so I went to cash my check and he was there, he wouldn't cash my check because I didn't have an account. Oh, hell with you, you know. And that was it. He didn't open my account. I don't remember who opened an account for me at the bank, at WSFS. And then so I could cash my check. And then I went there to buy the traveler's check.
And I asked who's next. As luck would have it, she was next.
And he helped me then.
She came to buy traveler's checks because she was going back to Italy on vacation for about 2 months. I don't know why. We started the chit-chatting about this and that, one thing or another. I forgot to mention that she also happened to be extremely very good looking, extremely well built. Also, anyhow.
You know, I mean, he was kind, you know, he was nice. But my girlfriend thought he was hot and he would say, let's go to the bank. What would I go to the bank for? Well, let's go to the bank and we'll go see that. And I don't want to go to the bank. But he was, you know, he was nice looking. He had hair. He was good looking there.
We chit-chatted for about half an hour, and I saw the traveler's checks, and I remember telling her jokingly, "Oh, I bet you're going to Italy because you're going to get married." And she said, "No way, absolutely, I don't want to get married in Italy. I want to stay in the United States." Fine. She went to Italy. For about 2 or 3 months, I kept thinking about her all the time. I guess, you know, call it love, I guess, I cannot, without even knowing her.
When I came back, I stayed there 4 months in Italy, 3 maybe, I don't know. When I came back, and it was his birthday, and I went to cash my check, and I said, oh, guess what, you were right, I did get engaged there, because I got engaged while I was there. And he was I think he was devastated.
I swear you could have stabbed me and no blood would have come out. I said, God, are you kidding me? I didn't know what to do. But I still was very much in love with her. I just could not envision the idea of losing her. But I didn't know what to do. So what I did, I went to speak to Father Balducelli, the parish priest of St. Anthony, and I told him, look, this is my situation. I love this girl very much. She's engaged in Italy. I don't know. I've never had the opportunity to talk to her face to face. What do I do? She thought, why don't you write a letter? Let her know. Hey, why didn't I think of that? So I wrote her a long, long letter, a 6-page letter, and sent it to her. And back then, back in those days, the postal service still worked. I knew that I sent the letter, let's say it was a Monday or Tuesday, and I knew that by Wednesday, certainly by Friday, when she came to the bank all the time, she would have received it. So on Friday night, I was looking for her to come in, and she came to, just Lisa came to the bank, her sister. They used to come together before all the time. And when I saw, and Lisa was trying to avoid me also.
Wrote the name, and I endorsed my check, and I gave my sister the cash, and I went. There was a 5 and 10 right across from the bank. I went there because I wanted to see him, and he came there. He came to the bank, and he started, and I was so mean to him.
And I told Maria, it's a fact. I'm in love with you. If you're in love with a guy in Italy, you can tell me to go to hell, and that's it. But that's the way it is. And she told me, you have no right to do this to me, She started, and I was embarrassing her, but it was a little bit of a scene.
When you were at the 5 and Dime, why were you
because he had written that letter, and my brother, bless his soul, Antonio, opened the letter and read it. And he was very angry. I went home from work, and he threw that letter in my face. Look at that. Is that what you became here? And all? I mean, I didn't tell him to write a letter. It was kind of love letter he wrote. And I didn't tell him, And I was mad at him. I said, how dare you? You wrote a letter, you sent it. You could give it to me or something. You should not have sent it home. And like he said, he was right. Your brother had no right to open your mail. I didn't know that he was going to do that, But my brother was really angry. And so I was angry at him, for writing the letter.
But anyhow, she left abruptly, and I thought my life had ended, really. I went back home anyhow that night, and the very next morning, Saturday morning, the phone rang. It was about 8 o'clock. I said, who the hell is this hour? Finally, I answered, and it was Maria. And she was calling to apologize for treating me rudely the night before. She told me that her mom she had told her mom what happened, and her mom had told her to call me to apologize because there's nothing wrong with being in love with somebody. And if you don't want him, just tell him so, but you should be pleasant to him.
And he stayed on the phone. He kept me on the phone maybe an hour, I don't know. Kept me on the phone. I think the longest time he ever talked on the phone.
Then reminded me, by the way, my mom asked me if you want to come for dinner. Do I want to come for dinner? Jesus, yes, I would have canceled an appointment with the Pope. I just go there. Anyhow, we started there. I started going to dinner there frequently. And finally, I did ask her, how are things with you and that boyfriend there? Said, I'm going to cancel it, break it off because I don't want to go back to Italy. He would like to marry me, but for me to go back in Italy, and I don't want to go back to Italy. So she broke off the engagement with the guy there, and that left the way open for me. And we're talking about January or February 1964. And to make sure she wouldn't change her mind, we got married right away on May 30th. And 58 years later, we're still together.
Please tell me you still have that letter.
Some, please.
Okay. You held on to it, though.
Some, please. Yes, I did.
This is for either one of you. How many years have you been married?
58. How long have we been married?
58, 4 months and 8 days, but who's counting?
What's it like being married for so long?
You better answer.
For me, it's been wonderful. The only thing I regret is not marrying him earlier, and I mean that.
Ditto.
How would you describe Noni?
Very kind. He's very kind, very respectful, very loved by everybody. I hear everybody tell, when they speak about him, they say, "Oh, he's the kindest man. Oh my God, he's just, what would do, God forbid something happened to him." He does all kind of work for all the Italian, the immigrants are here, any kind of paperwork, they need everything. He doesn't charge anybody. If they're old, he goes and pick it up, come home, do the work and take it back. He's very kind.
Well, she's referring to the fact that I'm a notary public and I do notary work for Italian people.
Noni, how would you describe my mom?
She's a good question. Damn good cook, but besides that, she's very attractive, and she was and still is very attractive. What else? She's lovely. That's what I say. I don't know. I don't mean this just for this affair here. But I don't think I could or would want to live without her.
When there's a sad time, we're happy together every day, and even if we kind of jokingly we get on each other's nerves, but we just could not. We could not be at one another. That's all. That's
every day builds a new memory.
Yeah.
So to speak. So I cannot really distinguish any specific memory, because we just simply enjoy being with each other, especially now, probably now more than before, because before we had our job to go to and we had other worries, but now that we are comfortable financially and health-wise also, we really need each other. We prefer being alone, especially, I have to add, since I cannot hear very well, I really prize our, let's call it loneliness, because I can understand her much better than when there's a lot of people around. Having said that, I don't mean that I don't want you guys here. I absolutely want you to come here. But as far as personal comfort, and I'm speaking for myself, I just enjoy being with her, just the two of us.
Would you both say that you think of yourselves as Italians or as Americans?
Good question. Both. We have Italian roots and values, but we have absorbed also the virtues that America has offered us, and we accept it. I know that America is not perfect. It has its faults. It would be foolish to say that America is the best in the world. As far as I'm concerned, it is a hell of a lot better than many other countries. I do not even know what other countries are like, but I cannot imagine living any place else better than here in the United States.
No, I was said, I was born and raised in Italy, and I love my country. I don't like when people say something bad. Not that people do, but I don't like it. But I love this country. I love the minute I stepped in this country, and I just it gave me much more than I ever give my country, and much more than Italy ever thought I'd give me. So even though we still vote in Italy and whatever, but this is my country. That's that's where the bread and butter always been. So yeah, I love this country. That's all I could say. I don't know if I consider myself, even though my friends consider me more American than Italian, I don't know which one, but I would say that I love this country more than I love Italy. That's all.
As I said before, there was a time many years ago when I missed Italy and I longed to go back there. And lasted for a good 10, 15 years. And I wish I could have found a job in Italy. But then I simply realized that Italy is a marvelous country to visit. America is a marvelous country to stay.
Why do you think you both succeeded so well in America? You know, you both kind of came from not tons of money, right? Not tons of privilege, no money, right? And you know, you built a family and you have a life that you love, and things seem to have gone well for you. What do you attribute that to?
Because it's a country of opportunity. You want it, you could grab it. You don't want it, then you don't get it. But I mean, we want to better ourselves, and we did. We just, you know,
we came here. She more than me, actually, because I came here as a student. She came here out of need, and but we did not expect anything to be given to us. We knew that we had to contribute to do our share. That's my advice to everybody, not just from Italy, but from any part of the world that wants to come to the United States. By all means, do come, but don't expect that things be handed out to you.
But the pride, I think you have to have a pride in yourself to work. I mean, I didn't want to, I mean, I came here with $11 in between my brother and I, and, you know, we just knew that we had to do something to survive, and we did it. I mean, I don't understand how people, I worked for 40 years, never collect unemployment, and I was never unemployed because I wanted to work. And that's, I think, the drive for life. That's all you need. You just want it to be. Don't want to depend on anybody. You just, I don't know. Just, I would not change my life. I wouldn't even care that, you know, say, oh, I wish I was rich. No, I'm fine. I have food on my table. I have a roof over my head. Thank you, America. I always say, thank you. I've been here 63 years. And loved every minute of it. Give me more than I give it. I told you that before. This country gave me much more than Italy gave me. And please believe me, I worked in Italy. Maybe a few years because I was only 18, but I worked. Never got anything for it. So
you have no idea what kind of work she had, what kind of life she had in Italy. I think I mentioned before, first time I went there with her was in 1969. We had been married, 5 years?
Yeah.
And Donna was, she was 4,
yeah.
I guess, in 1969, yeah. And Valeria was 2. And back then, now they're doing fine. But back then, 1969, they still had
they don't have indoor plumbing.
Indoor plumbing. It was a pretty unreal. Plus, they work. Jesus, man, they work. Now they have tractors and they do that kind of stuff. But back then, everything was done by hand. And that's the kind of life she had when she came to the United States. Believe me, my admiration and love for her increased immediately when I saw what kind of life she used to have.
As you guys know, we wanted to make this video so that the family would have a record of where we came from. So, decades from now, when I'm showing this to my grandkids, is there anything you would want to say to, you know, your great great grandkids, your great 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 grandkids? Any message you'd like them to hear from you?
You're lucky to be born later in life because I think they have a better opportunity. We did well, but I think, I don't know, progress, we hope that progress keep on going instead to go back, go forward. That's all.
I agree. I think I'll tell them, be grateful that you come from good stock, so to speak. And mainly be grateful that you are here in the United States. What I keep telling her all the time, especially when we talk about finances, I know that we are in the top, even though I'm not wealthy, but we are in the top 10% of the world, not just the United States, in the top 10% of the world. And we don't even realize it. Actually, and I realized, I'm sure. And I would want to tell my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, talking to you now, remember that you are in a privileged position and appreciate it.